Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a few different demos that I want to share with you. The first being what we talked about in our last video, which is this ShopBirdy shopping engine, AI powered shopping engine. This is, I believe, a preview of what the next generation shopping experiences will look like. Imagine this. You have a personalized shopping assistant, maybe even a group of agents who understand exactly what you want, what you're looking for, what your price range is, your preferences, your styles, the favorite brands you like, the stores you like to shop at, and even helps you discover things that you didn't even know existed yet, right? Imagine you had this ability and you could send off these shop birdies to go all over and find the best deals for you. Doesn't necessarily mean the best price. This price is one factor, but that's just one. There are other things in the totality of the deal itself, right? What's the total deal? So do I get offers? Do I have better warranties? Do I get some cash back? Is there any status that I'm building up or any benefits that I'm accruing by choosing one offer over another? So that, I think, is what separates this ShopBirdy from, let's just say, a price comparison engine. That's one. The other one is because we're not holding any of the inventories, we don't have any incentive to try to sell you one product or the other. We're just trying to give you the best thing we can find for you. That's the concept of ShopBirdy. And we want to onboard lots of different merchants and brands who want to get their brand across to a global, shopper base, right? I mean, if you think about it, the world has become so globalized. Products are manufactured in one country, then they're shipped to other countries, and then there's distributors. There's this complex supply chain, and to help navigate that, the ShopBirdy is, I think, is the answer. So let's dig into what we have done since our last demonstration. A couple of cool things that we can talk about today. One I think is very interesting. From ChatGPT, from the OpenAI team, they released a new image generation tool, which I think is going to be actually quite powerful and transformational across the industry. So if you look at this image here, this JanSport backpack with this water bottle and this food storage container, this is an image generated by AI. Essentially what I've done is I've taken three random, or not so random, but just three different products from the ShopBirdy catalog, and I asked AI to put it together into a collage, into an image that showcases each of the products. And it did that. In fact, it actually merged two different styles of the backpack into one, but it put it all together in a realistic proportion, and that I think is absolutely incredible. You can imagine applying this to each shopper on an individual basis. As they're shopping, as their shopping cart is being filled up, you might start being able to help them picture what that would look like in their home, in their garage, in their office, on themselves if it's clothes, for example. I think this is going to usher in a new level of hyper-personalized advertising, which I think is going to speak to people in a different way, because now you're cutting through the noise. You're not necessarily trying to do mass market in the same sense. Now you can actually individualize and personalize on a one-to-one basis. I think if you look at the financial industry, that's been one of the challenges, and why fintech has risen so quickly is because there was a huge segment of the customer base, the deposit base, who just didn't have access to certain services and products because they didn't meet minimum thresholds or deposit requirements, so forth. And due to that, it was expensive to offer these kind of higher end services. So that was typically something unavailable for many people. But now with technology, we're able to introduce a lot more advanced, previously kind of bespoke offerings to everyone, really, right? Whether that's fractional shares or whether that's access to treasury bills, bonds, these kinds of more esoteric or products that you needed to buy in lots or have a significant purchase order to get access to. We can now democratize that and make that available to everyone. So personalized advertising that goes beyond just kind of your basic information like where you are, but also knowing a little bit more about your purchase history and other things that you're interested in, I think can create these advertising images and make the vision become realized. I think that's really interesting. You could apply this to like so many different things. Like if you're trying to determine if the washing machine or the dishwasher that you're looking at would fit in your kitchen, you could use image recognition technologies to kind of map that out and ensure that you have the right dimensions. So I think that's just really powerful. So just imagining being able to create a whole website totally personalized to the consumer. I think that's powerful. And if you had sort of a prompt, an overall prompt, you could quickly say like, let's do a back to school campaign. Back to school campaign. Suddenly everything on the website adapts to this overall campaign that you are offering, right? Back to school. Or maybe it's a holiday and you want to plug in that holiday, surface all kinds of products that are typically featured during that holiday, create the imagery, create the art assets, the marketing copy, the advertising imagery, put it all together, and you'll be able to create your campaign with just a keyword, really, or a prompt more specifically. That I think is really cool. So we've got some image recognition, we have some image generation technologies here, and we brought back the search. So let's say like, okay, so backpacks, we just talked about backpacks. Let's say I want to look for backpacks or backpack. All right. Once again, there's a few little bugs on this. I'm still ironing them out. It's taking much longer than I expected. You would think that with AI and generative AI, you could do so much more in less time, and that's definitely true. But what ends up happening is you end up just wanting to do more with that extra time. And so the ratio of still like not having enough time to get everything that you want done is still there, even with Gen AI. And actually I feel like Gen AI, it feels like the early days of dial-up internet, having to wait for all these tokens to stream in, chunk by chunk, token by token. Sometimes it can feel like it takes quite a long time, and I'm just imagining a point where we're able to stream, thousands and thousands of tokens per second. That will allow us to do really more advanced creative work, right? Because it's one thing to test, your chatbot to say, hi, how are you? And that will respond relatively quickly. But if you're sending huge, if you're asking it to review the context of my entire code base and help me make changes to certain files and fix bugs that would happen to other files, that's per request, that's thousands and thousands of tokens each time. So that's like, I think we're going to get to a point where we went from dial-up internet, mostly web pages and static images, to once we get into broadband, the streaming and higher quality, higher fidelity data. I think that's going to allow us to do even more interesting and exciting things. So I'm very much looking forward to further accelerating AI progress, because to me it's just not fast enough, especially since it's not going to be perfect 100% of the time. So you are going to want to iterate, and sometimes you're going to want the AI to do the iteration by itself to check its own work. And in order for that to happen, we just need way more tokens per second. I mean, just has to happen. We just need much more efficient models. We need much higher bandwidth. We need like probably dedicated protocols specifically for this type of internet traffic. I think that would really help. Okay, so we're back into our backpacks here. I got visual search enabled, so that means that I'm running local models here. We've got the global LLM model here for doing the chat, but for doing product discovery and visual discovery, I'm using my models. So we searched for backpack, and I really like this leopard print. So let's see if I can find anything else like that. And look at this, we've got more choices more options to choose from. Some of them are the same print, but maybe at a different price. Maybe it has different pockets and so forth. So that's really cool. The other cool thing that we've integrated here into the ShopBirdy experience is that it's going to help you find where those products are being sold, which stores you can find them at. And on top of everything else, ShopBirdy is going to do its best to try to get you the best deal, right? It's going to try to factor in all kinds of incentives and offers that maybe you can stack. So if you have a certain type of payment method, or you already have a membership program at one of these retailers, let's see if we can stack on those offers and present the best deal. So that's something that I think AI will increasingly enable. So we're not just going to be price conscious, because that's just one factor. We're also going to want to understand what is the total deal that we can have, offered to us, so that we can compare it, on a somewhat apples to apples basis. So we've got visual search enabled. Let's say we want to do like cleaning supplies. We've got some cleaning spray here. All right, let's see if there's anything else like this. A whole bunch of different sprays for removing grease stains in the kitchen, for cleaning surfaces, for personal hygiene, all this kind of stuff, right? So that's awesome. What else would we be needing to look for right now? We did backpacks, we did cleaning supplies. How about storage? Let's just say storage. What do we get back? Baskets, racks, boxes, bins. This looks kind of cool. And visual search is, once again, we're taking the visual information. So what something looks like, the shape of it, the form factor, and we are comparing the selected image that we want to search against with all the other products in the catalog that share similarities in terms of that form factor. And I just think that this is going to be a very powerful way for searching for things, because it's taking so much of the manual work that the shopper has to do to find something and makes it, as easy as just a click. And there's going to be things like suggested items, other things you might be interested in, and then it will just display all of that. So this ShopBirdy is coming together nicely. I wish it could be done faster. I wish I could have already the iPhone app, the Android app. That's all gonna come soon, hopefully. And some of the other cool features like exclusive rewards and best price guarantee is hard to do without having partners. Exclusive rewards also hard to do without having partners. But this, I think, as a platform upon which to build other integrations, I think would be really, really powerful and exciting. And I think it could transform how people discover products, and not just in one market, but truly globally. I think that can be possible. If you go back and you think about how Alibaba was able to scale so to this gigantic size that it is today, is because it started out as a B2B marketplace. So if you were looking for building supplies, lumbers, windows, doors, paints, those kinds of things. If you were opening a kitchen and you needed appliances, if you needed bulk order pots and pans and bowls and plates and spoons and forks, chopsticks, you could source that from Alibaba, and that's how it grew. And over time, it became also from B2B also to B2C, and they added tons of features on top of that Alibaba platform. Like, for example, you had the AliExpress for international buyers. So American people can order things from all around the world through AliExpress, for example. Then you'd have other things that were offshoots to just e-commerce in general. I'm talking about Tmall, Shein, Pinduoduo, Taobao, Temu, right? All of these different shopping experiences that got lots of users and became a very vibrant place. So that's kind of ShopBirdy. I just imagine a shopping engine, a shopping agent, or a whole group of agent, a team of agents who can go off and find different things for me and put them together and help organize the decision tree for me, right? And even help proactively find things that might be interesting for me. Help me do the price comparison, the total deal comparison, and help me choose with some recommendations or other maybe social signals and those sorts of things. So I think this is a really cool preview of where I think the future of online commerce, online shopping is going. That's ShopBirdy. Let's switch topics here. We're going to continue on to our discussion of generative AI and multimodal. So we talked about visual search, we talked about text-based search, and we showed things like image recognition and so forth. What about voice? Well, voice can also be a very powerful input method as well, especially since with AI we can translate languages pretty much easily on the fly. I mean, there's always some nuance, and even one language still has many dialects and accents. But I think that there are services really dedicated to all of the edge cases of natural language processing. And they're getting more and more data that it's going to get so much better. I think even if you looked at Llama 4, which I haven't integrated here yet, but it was just recently released by Meta, I think they said they trained other languages besides English, like for example Thai, a handful of languages, each on about, I think, 1 billion tokens. So that's tons of data, right? And so I think that's just going to make the system smoother, better, add more higher resolution, right? Think about it, an image that you would display back in the dial-up days to a full, high resolution image today with lots of detail, lots of granular details. Each pixel has its own unique color and shade and gradient. That's kind of how I believe language fidelity will go. So here we're in an in-flight order system. So oftentimes we will go on a trip, we will take a flight, and we will be presented with possibly a paper menu or an in-flight ordering system in the in-flight entertainment console. And the cabin crew, the flight attendants, are coming down the aisle and presenting us with different options. And typically, they try to make it simple for us. So when it's food time, when it's dinner time, a meal time, they'll pretty much offer 2 or 3 choices. It'll either be like chicken and fish or a vegetarian option as well. So it simplifies the decision-making process because people have food allergies and food preferences, and you're trying to get through a lot of customers, and you want them all to pretty much get their meal served at around the same time. So if you overload people with too much choices, it's just going to complicate things and slow things down. So if you limit sort of the customized options down to just a handful of different configuration options, that dramatically speeds up the process. But a lot of times when we're ordering stuff, we have to do a lot of decision-making process. So if I say that I'd like to have a coffee, well, how do I take the coffee? Is it a black coffee? Is it a cafe americano, which is black coffee with no cream and sugar? Would you like cream and sugar? Would you like just cream or just sugar, for example? So there's all kinds of different options to that, what seems like a simple menu item, right? Same thing for tea. Would you like to have an English style tea with milk? Would you like to have a hot tea, a cold tea, add lemon, right? Water, still water, sparkling water, right? Juice, we might have different options. We might have orange juice and apple juice. So there are lots of decisions that we have to make, and each actor or person we bring into the process can potentially complicate things. So how do we smooth things out? How do we make it really simple for the flight attendant to meet with any customer, whatever language they're speaking, get their order, process the order, log the order, and move on to the next customer and ensure that we have a great service for everyone? Well, we can introduce audio input. Now, I'm recording on my screen now, so I'm not sure if the microphone voice input will work in this application, but let's try. Hi, hello, how are you? So I Okay, so you can see that the agent or the assistant here actually was able to interpret my conversation. Let's try speaking in a different language. สวัสดีครับ Oh, let me try to change this. All right. สวัสดีครับ สวัสดีครับ That's in English. สวัสดีครับ Okay, so it looks like it got my order. I mean, it can understand me in both Thai and English. ขอคาเฟ่อเมริกาโน่ครับ So there I asked for a coffee. Cafe Americano is normally known as a black coffee. And it added it to my cart. Now, there's a small bug here. I'm doing some kind of double counting on this, or the system is processing both my order and the cabin crew assistant order as distinct orders, but it should actually just be one order for black coffee. I'll just make that adjustment here. And the cool thing about having AI is it can understand all of your inventory components, so it can update your stock in real time. From those inventory components, it can come up with all kinds of menu ideas and different combinations on how you can use each of those components. So that's also kind of cool. So you can use AI to help you with your inventory tracking. You can use AI to help you with your menu creation. You can use AI to help you take in the order and process it. And you can use AI to translate or to speak and converse with customers no matter which language they speak in, right? So I have just placed my order. You could see I demonstrated I can speak Thai, I can speak English. It was able to even figure out that when I said Cafe Americano, it means Americano black coffee, basically. And it added that to my order. The only challenge there is I have to trace why is it doing the double counting. There seems to be a duplicate order. And I think it has something to do with either the dual languages counting twice, or my order and the assistant order repeating it to me is counting it as twice. So let's just fix that down the road. I can set my payment method. Well, there's maybe a small bug in that, but we'll just pay with Visa here. And my payment is successful. So this is really cool because basically what this means is that as the flight attendant is coming to the aisle and speaking with each of the different customers, they can just have this system on, taking the orders and adjusting it on the fly, so they don't have to break their conversation with the consumer or the customer. They can just keep going. They don't have to stop and key in anything. The system can then just be autonomously picking up those subtle keys. So that's kind of an example of this in-flight menu, flight service, cabin crew application that can serve both customers and the staff. And if you wanted to add in training to this and different, you could even make this into a game. Really, you could have random types of customers coming, and then you could test each of your system able to respond to each of those requests. And you could grade the output to see where you are very confident you can fulfill those requests and which you need to have more nuance to, or more edge case handling, so to speak. So that's this sort of in-flight app experience where we're able to transcribe conversations, listen to the voice, try to identify who's speaking, map that to an order, place the order into a cart, ensure that we're also updating our stock and making sure that we have items available to be presented and to be ordered, and do the full checkout process. So that's an example of how we can use generative AI in that case. Then you might say, like, gosh, this is all cool, but let's say I'm a small business owner, an entrepreneur, and I'm just thinking to myself, how can I manage all the different projects, all the different possibilities, right? AI is enabling me to do 1,000 times the work in a fraction of the time, at very minimal incremental cost. In some cases, no incremental cost, really. But how do I organize all that? And so I think what would be another interesting use case for AI is if you had your whole business in an app, in a dedicated app for you, like an enterprise resource planning, but very simple, right? This is just your startup, just your business. It could just be you, right? You plug in who's in your workforce. What do you have in terms of, do you have actual team members, or do you have agents? Like, let's say Portfolio is one of your agents, or ShopBirdy is one of your agents. And through that, you can then, start to figure out how you can allocate your resources to different projects, and then which projects you should focus on. So you might have sort of a balanced scorecard way of managing your business. So you might be thinking like, okay, we've got different perspectives. We have our internal perspectives. We have our customer perspective, financial perspective. Think of it as a strategy map of a balanced scorecard. You just want to focus on a few key things within each of those perspectives. So in terms of the financials, you might be really focused on two things: optimizing revenue, increasing cost, right? Sounds easy to say, but what are the details to do that? But again, it's important to identify what are those highest priority things and not have too many of them. Make it a small, manageable number. In terms of customers, how do we increase revenue? Well, what if we increase customer satisfaction? That can be one way. How do we optimize costs? Well, we can expand market share. Maybe there's ways of doing that, of optimizing costs if we expand market share. Maybe we can consolidate. Maybe we can get wholesale pricing, right? There's ways of doing that. So in terms of each of these strategic goals in our strategy, our overall strategy, we're going to have also risks. So we're going to think about what are the most pressing risks. And it's very important that we always are clear-headed and honest about recognizing the probability of risks, because it's going to impact which projects we choose to focus on. So when we're looking at our project portfolio, right, we might want to look at what are the highest risks we need to address, and that's probably what we should be focused the most on, right? Still keeping in consideration all the risks to our business, but if customer churn is going to have the highest likelihood and the biggest impact to our business, then we need to make sure that we have projects in our portfolio that are going to help mitigate this customer churn. If we're going to go to our project portfolio, we're going to look for things that actually help us address customer churn. And it could be that the onboarding and retention of our application could be improved. So maybe how we walk people through our application, how we get them to fill out the different elements, how we show them the time to value has been really decreased. That could help with our onboarding and our retention. So that would be a higher priority project. And we might assign each project could be assigned a certain budget with also an expected value, right? So the EV should almost always be higher than the budget that you assign for it. You want to calculate the return on this investment by also the likelihood that you'll be able to complete the project. So if you take in all of these different projects, these are all the different things you could be working on, things you are working on, other things you could be working on. You want to sort them based on what are my biggest risks, what gives me the best ROI, right? How do I have the workforce? Do I have the resources to allocate to these projects? If I have a project where I'm missing certain resources, can I recruit an agent to help me with that? Do I need a full-time team member? Is there another team or a company that can help provide that for me? That can massively reduce my risk, help me increase my ROI, especially since that team or that company may be highly capable. So there's not going to need to be a ton of training, ramp up, onboarding, getting them up to speed on what the scenario is, right? Ideally, these are very highly trained professionals. So AI can then look at all of my company and then suggest a project for me, a new project based on what I'm working on, what I have on my team, what my risks are. This thing should be able to come up with a project for me to work on. Here it's done that. Automated customer support system. This system has created the project, created the timeline. It's identifying me which KPIs are going to improve, which risks it mitigates, who are my team members who will be part of that, what's my kind of budget I want to allocate for this automated customer support system, what's my expected value, what's the ROI. And let's say I have a threshold that says I only want to look at projects where I have at least a 30% positive ROI. Below that, it's not impactful enough, or it's too much risk. So then when I'm looking at my efficient frontier, my portfolio optimization, all the different things that I could be working on at any one point in time, this system is going to help me identify what has the best risk return profile, right? So I think that is actually really, really cool. And then if I have these different agents that I can pull in, strategy agents, customer engagement experts, leadership and coaching specialists, stock market research analysts, shopper intelligent agent, right? Portfolio, ShopBirdy AI, Playbasis AI, any of these things. So then I can bring them into my workflow, or I can chat with them, and that can help me, really improve my KPIs, make sure I've got a great strategy, I've got the right projects, the right team, I've identified the risks, and I know what to do, right? I think that's one of the biggest challenges is, like, as entrepreneurs, small business owners, founders, there's so many different things to consider, so many different things to pursue. And you get information by taking action. You get information by doing something. You don't get information by just staying still and trying to plan through everything. I mean, you got to have a plan, but then you've got to test that plan against reality. And so that's why when I was actually using my own tool here to help me come up with a strategy, every time I would come up with the projects, and I describe what I'm trying to achieve as a startup, or build a new product, the first thing that the system would always recommend me to do is, do you have an MVP, the minimum viable product? Have you done that at least? And so that was reinforcing to me that no matter how cool your business plan is, no matter how cool your concept is, if it's still on paper and you've not actually implemented any of it, if you've not actually tested it in the wild with users, then that plan is not totally validated, and you're only going to get more data by taking action and by doing things, right? And so you want to be optimizing and calibrating each step of the way. So for the MVP build out, that's something. So the other thing is that this chatbot has all of my KPIs, all of my risks, all of my projects, right? So if I wanted to ask it a question about, like, how will reallocating developers impact our maintenance KPIs, right? It's got that context, this chatbot. So it's helping me figure out how I might most effectively prioritize my maintenance tasks, evaluate my resource allocation, adjust my timelines, and then which KPIs it should improve. Or, an improve can mean either decreasing the number or making that number go higher. So this is I think would be a very valuable executive assistant, advisor for basically just planning your strategy from a high level, right? This is not a project management tool. It's not a recruiting tool. It's not a KPI tracking tool, right? This is actually just sort of like a personal software, but you could build it out and you could add more people to it. So that's a nice tool just to have. So as we're going through and building out prototypes, MVPs for ShopBirdy, for the Sky Service Elite, in-flight ordering system, right? Or even we're building, like, let's say, a financial advisory tool, right? I want to help advisors sell insurance, sell wealth management products, provide portfolio recommendation strategies, do gap analysis, that kind of thing, right? So if I had all of these different ways of using GenAI, then I think we now have a number of products in our portfolio, a number of use cases. And I think having that diversified portfolio is really important in today's day and age, especially since market volatility and other forces can impact kind of like your business plan, right? I mean, unless you've planned for every scenario and you are 100% sure that no matter what your business is going to succeed, that sounds quite unlikely. So maybe the better thing to do is to have more products, right? Speak to more different customers. And then once you find there's a product market fit, then you can go deeper on that, right? Or if you're getting great responses from consumers, but maybe the business side of things is just too slow, then maybe it's because possibly B2B software is just overcrowded and people have forgot about B2C and how we're all consumers anyways, right? So, and there's less roadblocks to getting a consumer product adopted than trying to get, installed into an enterprise. So, but on the flip side, and I was able to do this at my company Play Basis, we grew to 20 million users, not as a B2C, but as a B2B2C. So we were actually business to business. So getting to 20 million users by going through the most kind of arduous and compliance industries, where you have to have business continuity plans and you have to show, in some cases, financial statements, and you need to pass through their security audits and their compliance, and how are you managing customer data, and all these check marks, right? All these check boxes. That's actually the toughest route to get to 20 million users. It would have been much easier to just have gone direct to consumer with a product that could go viral, that doesn't have any kind of necessarily roadblocks to adoption, and just put it out there. And that's why I think so far all of the big AI success stories have just been direct to consumers, right? Whether it's Cursor or ChatGPT or Perplexity or Midjourney or any of these image creation, video creation, code creation, even study tools, right, for students. They're going direct to consumers. They're figuring out that people want to have a superpower, right? And if they have this kind of special power that they have available to them, if they figured out this cool tool that allows them to do some really incredible work at a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost, that they're going to want to use that. They're going to want to try to arbitrage that a little bit for as long as they can, right? They're going to want to be able to leverage those AI superpowers before the rest of the user base figures that out. So I think there's a very compelling case to be made to go to consumers, because the buying process for the B2B software is still quite cumbersome. And that's a shame, because we're really holding back delivering great service to customers and really making the life of our employees way easier if we would have just figured out how to adopt these tools. But we've got to do that, because we'd be holding ourselves back unneedlessly. So we went through ShopBirdy, in-flight ordering system, kind of a strategic project management, project portfolio, resource allocation with agents and efficient frontier as well. Simple example of how we could add context to financial advisors by pulling in their customers' information and chatting with a persona of that customer, so that I can actually go through some scenarios with that customer without actually having to have them on the phone. If I have some sense of what their data is, I can chat with their persona, or I can make sure that my advice is being tailored to that particular person. So I think that's pretty cool as well. And then sometimes we need to finance these ventures, right? So let's say we do have all these different projects, and we need a certain budget, right? We're going to raise seed fundraising, right? We're going to need to raise a round of seed funding, and that's going to have an ROI, expected value of 500K, but there's going to be some budget that we're going to need to put into that, right? So we're going to need to demonstrate, let's say, at least $200,000 worth of value created before we can ask for the 500,000 investment, right? So we're going to need to demonstrate that we've actually put in the work and actually developed something, right? So we're not just going to be able to get that money as a donation or as a grant, right? That's going to come in the form of an equity sale, or possibly even as a convertible loan or a debt instrument that can offer warrants, for example, or even just debt to strengthen the balance sheet, which can then be used to raise financing from venture investors, right? So I think there's right now a huge funding gap. For some reason, the world has gone, I mean, they've over-indexed on certain things. Like, this is what happens when we have to change different playbooks. Sometimes we tend to over-index on things, and we've decided that debt is absolutely the worst thing possible for startups. That you should not have a strong balance sheet with debt on there, because that means that you're assuming you'll never pay that back, and you're building in a business plan to where you'll never pay back your debt, which is, I think, a foolish thing to do. What debt can give you is, if you're using that funding not just to pay your normal expenses, but to expand your business, or even just have your balance sheet stronger so that you're in a better position when you are seeking financing, right? Because each loan has different terms, and in some cases, I might love your company as a business, but I may not be in a position to take equity risk, right? I may not be, my company may not be in position to hold shares of your company. But what I can do, let's say I'm a bank, I can loan you. I can give you a debt instrument. I can give you a business loan, right? So that's what this loan origination term sheet, this loan application form, it can be a single page where both the borrower and the lender can be on the same page. We can share what the interest rate's going to be. We can plot that out, what that total repayment schedule is going to look like over time, what the monthly payment's going to look like over time. We can look to see like where we're at now with month 0, where we will be once we've got that loan balance added to our balance sheet, what that does to our cash balance, then how, as we ramp our operating expenses, how revenue will then also increase. We'll then also be able to see whereby, this is projected revenue, we're going to be able to see at which point revenue begins to exceed operating expenses. So that's a magical moment, right? So now we are in basically cash flow positive at that point. And on top of that, we're paying down our loan balance, and our cash balance is increasing. So now we're in a good place after the first year taking that loan. We're in such a good place, we should ramp up, okay? So we should then, assuming that these ratios hold, we've got a 5-year loan, we've got a 60-month term loan, we should have a business plan that extends well beyond that, and we should have good use for those proceeds. So in this case, you're seeing that once we've figured out the point at which we can cross over, where revenue exceeds expenses, we can then look to see, is there any relationship between expenses and revenue? Meaning to say, if I increase expenses, will I also be able to commensurately increase my revenues? If you have the right type of business, that can be a leverage point for you. You can actually do that, right? Not all businesses can just absorb financing, right? Most small businesses can only do that by hiring people, and if you just hire lots of people, you don't necessarily get more productive in every case. Sometimes things slow down. Where you get more leverage is if you have good team, maybe you make your team even better, but then you're able to add other forms of property, equipment. You can buy things in bulk, you can get better prices, right? There's other things that you can do in terms of inventory and other areas of your sort of assets, whereby if you increase your expenses, sometimes that can be marketing and advertising, but not always, but sometimes. But there's other forms of utilizing cash to help you grow your revenues. And so in this projection you see here, I've actually decided to increase expenses linearly, and the revenue growth follows that until at some point it breaks into an exponential curve. And at this point, I've now achieved complete takeoff, where I've got more than enough cash every year to cover my expenses. My expenses are growing at a steady rate, predictable rate. My cash balance is ever increasing. I've paid off my entire loan, and my revenue continues to grow. And it all started from that first check, that loan, that debt instrument That the company that says, great, I want to be involved in startups, but I cannot take illiquidity risk right now. I have tons of capital to put to work, but I'm not in the position to buy shares. What I'd like to do is offer senior debt notes, convertible notes, loans with warrants, right? Those are something that I can actually do. And with this new debt on my balance sheet, I can now go to venture investors, right? Or even strategic investors, private equity, people that own private businesses, who can then say, okay, I can take your balance sheet, your company, your products, your entrepreneurs, your ingenuity, and I can introduce you to new potential buyers. I can introduce you to partners. I can introduce you to suppliers. I can get, by me being part of your cap table, I can multiply you, basically. And so that, I think, is where you can bring in other investors or advisors onto your team. But I don't think you should totally discount or outright dismiss debt, because debt is an instrument. The bond market is absolutely massive, right? That's how we finance pretty much the entire global economy, right? The thing about equity is that there always needs to be a buyer for the sellers, right? And then that can have a cascading effect. It can also have an inflationary effect as well. But when it comes to debt, when you have a fixed payment schedule and you have good credit rating, you can negotiate terms and debt can be transferred, right? You can refinance your debt. You can roll over debt. Debt is very powerful and interesting thing, and all the big companies leverage it to some extent. Some more than others. Some are actually probably in position to be more generous and actually lend more, I would say. But maybe they're not in the business of doing that, but they just have these swelling cash balances, which they park into treasuries or into other forms of bonds, which are just a form of debt, right? You are lending that money to, whether it's the government or whether it's other corporations, and you are taking a coupon, you're taking a fixed rate payment over time that by the end of the term of that, you'll have made 5, 6, 8, 10%, whatever it is, 2, 4%. Essentially risk-free, and the level of risk dictates or influences the rate of return, right? The expected rate of return or the hurdle rate. So if you could combine this sort of financial advice with these pre-vetted, pre-qualified startup project ideas, we could, and then you could demonstrate how that funding is going to be used, and you could show how you could allocate that funding across different products to see which resonates the most with certain buyer segments. I think that would be very, very impactful to the overall ecosystem economy, right? So I think that's pretty exciting stuff. Unfortunately, here in Thailand, where I'm at, we unfortunately had a shock. We had a major earthquake affect this region of the world, and it had a ripple effect felt for hundreds, maybe even 1,000 kilometers away. There was a 7.7 magnitude earthquake that struck Myanmar, the neighboring country of Thailand. But we in Bangkok felt that shock very vividly here in the city center. So we were a country away, we could feel it. And as a result, almost all standing structures, because Bangkok is a very verticalized, very dense, high-rise buildings, malls, almost all buildings suffered some form of damage. Cracked walls, doorways warped, pylons and pillars cracked, brick has fallen, ceilings have been fallen, drywall, pipes burst. So it's like all the buildings were shaken, and every building now has dozens and dozens of these smaller, more cosmetic issues, in some cases structural, which is very unfortunate, but in most cases still habitable, You can still live in them, you can still work in those buildings, but they've been affected by this earthquake damage. And as a result, there's a lot of work to be done, whether it's first cataloging and doing a damage assessment, to figuring out how we're going to pay for that, whether that's covered by, is earthquake insurance covered under normal insurance? Is that covered under the homeowner's insurance? How does that affect property values? How does that affect the renters who aren't the owners but live in those places? How are we going to rebuild after all this? And I just wanted to think, in that moment of time, what can I do, starting with the problem that I have right here at home? What can I do to help solve or help facilitate, accelerate the rebuild process? How can we make this better? Turn the situation into an opportunity. And I turned to AI. So I used AI to build a 3D replica model of my unit, my condo unit. I then took photos of all of the different places in that room that had damage, and you could start to see patterns around certain structural elements where things have been damaged. And then I placed these as points in 3D space, and then I assigned photos of each of those damaged locations. So as you can see here, I have this big crack here on the wall. We've got tiles that were offset and shifted, causing paint and other things to fall. In some cases, the entire piece of the door, just the tile on that was just ripped off, fell off. So I took probably about a dozen or so pictures. The jurisdiction, the property management maintenance crew also came in to take photos. I shared these photos with the landlord. I've also documented them and saved them here as well. And the idea, I guess, was just to help make this process go a little bit smoother, and maybe use some AI to analyze and do some kind of damage assessment on this. Like if we take a picture of this doorway and we ask to analyze that with AI, right? We want to get an analysis that says, here's what we see from that picture. We can see that there's cracking in the door frame, may indicate stress transfer from building movement. Further inspection recommended around other door window openings. Loose material, these are some immediate concerns. What are the maintenance needs? And the estimated repair cost. So I don't know how accurate this is, right? Depends on the extent of hidden damage. But if you think, let's say it's $300 to $400 per unit, or let's say $500 to $1,000 per unit, right? And you multiply that across, we've got hundreds of units in one condo building and thousands of condo buildings, right? That is a ton of damage assessment that needs to be done. There's a tremendous backlog now. There's probably not enough maintenance workers to do all of this work right away. This is gonna be a long rebuild process. And the comparative advantage, if most of the buildings have been suffered in a similar way, then it shouldn't impact property values too much. But what it might do is cause all of the property websites to provide some level of certification or assurance to potential buyers that it has, just as you would have if you were selling a used car in the United States, you'd have you want to make sure you're not buying a lemon, so to speak. Nothing that has had major repairs, structural integrity issues. So these property companies may want to have some kind of certification that says, we've examined it, we've looked into it, the structure and so forth, it's safe, and it's not going to fall down on you, right? You're not going to be... So I think this is going to be a sector-wide, industry-wide, economy-wide, country-wide, and possibly even global thing that companies are going to have to do, right? Businesses are going to have to do, owners are going to have to do. We're going to have to be able to take these, do these inspections. And even if it's just the first layer, even if it's just the the surface layer, right? If it's not, but at least this will help us to start categorizing, sorting, prioritizing, and get some estimates of how much work is there to be done. How badly are these things? What are the things we need to prioritize the most? What are the patterns that we're noticing in terms of where are the damaged areas likely to appear? What is this going to mean in terms of our security deposits for renters, for example? What does that mean for insurance rates? How do we make sure that, if earthquake coverage wasn't included, it's now part of it? How do we not have the consumer who's facing a lot of economic uncertainty and stress right now have to bear this stress? What can we do from an economic standpoint to soothe this over as much as we can? And then how can we use tools and technology and AI to help us rebuild better and faster and even stronger than before? I think that's something to hope for and something to work towards. So that's it, guys. That's kind of a overview of various different GenAI products that I've been working on. I would like to once again recap. We have, your project portfolio, risk versus return, resource allocation, and executive assistant. We talked about how we could enable financial advisors to evaluate projects and possibly help with funding those things, whether that's funding for new projects, whether that's reimbursement for damages, whether that's debt for business expansion, right? We can use AI to help facilitate the movement of funds to the right places. And we talked about how we can use AI in flight as well, as an in-flight ordering system, as a cabin crew training, as a way to discuss with customers from every country in the world and all the different languages, and to help speed up the ordering process and make sure that we have stock inventory levels, and we have we can come up with cool menu ideas and so on and so forth, and use voice recognition technology and conversational natural language processing to help us catalog what was discussed and just bring those items up automatically, add them to the cart, surface them as we're speaking, and so forth, right? So that gives you a sense of how we can use generative AI, as well as image generation. So this image here you see here is a screenshot of this very application being held by a AI generated flight attendant, right? This is an example of the ShopBirdy co-branded card, which could be a great way to add partners and exclusive rewards, and possibly help you get a better price if the rewards partner can help offset some of those retail prices. So yeah, that's it. I'm pretty excited about all of this. It may seem like it's a lot. How can I do all of this? Luckily, AI is there. My request, though, is that can the AI token providers please speed it up a little bit? We need more tokens per second. And the thing about software is that, it compounds in value if you're building a great piece of software. So it's not a linear thing. I mean, the value of the software built today versus where it was a month ago is several orders of magnitude better, right? But this also increases the complexity, all of the different edge cases and all the different user types and the different kind of scenarios that we have to manage. So, I think what happens is you're going to end up using AI more and more at an exponential rate. And the base level, the baseline of what people expect is going to continue to increase higher and higher. So for me to continue doing this great work, I need more tokens per second. I need a very powerful system that has more context, can give me more tokens, and I don't want to be rate limited. I don't want to be batched, right? I don't want my requests to be refused because there's just too much load on the system. We need to increase the bandwidth a little bit. We need to enable our top creators to get really good access to this, because this is what's going to help drive more adoption throughout all aspects of the economy. And image recognition, voice recognition, streaming tokens, streaming UI updates, right? This is more than just a simple chatbot that says hello and how are you, right? This is throwing thousands of tokens per second potentially, right? And so I think we need to increase our capacity, and we also need to be ensuring that we're building software that is optimized for this new way of working. Because just like Netflix streams video, these AI providers are streaming tokens. It's a streamed thing. So it's like we're streaming bits of pieces of words and tokens through the air. And sometimes you can't have a partial stream, right? You need to get the full thing for it to complete. So I think there's lots of things from an architectural and systems way of thinking to, I don't know, maybe you have, just like Netflix has different resolutions. So like or YouTube, like if your internet is not so fast, it has another resolution it can drop down to, right? 480p or 720p, for example. And then when you're on a faster internet, maybe it expands the resolution, increases the file size and more streaming bits per second, but that's actually what you want. So I'd love to be able to work faster and do even more for you guys, but doing the best I can. But yes, thank you guys again for visiting, and I hope to be launching some of these soon. It's one thing to make a cool demo, right? But then once you deploy it and then you start calling the API from the cloud, and then you have lots of users, right? Those are things that you have to kind of plan for a little bit, because you want to ensure you have good quality service. So I've got to iterate on this a little bit more, but I'm getting close. The system is deployed, it's serving, my custom API is being served to ShopBirdy, but I'm not quite ready yet to ask everyone to go to ShopBirdy.ai and start using it. That's going to be coming hopefully soon. But thanks again, guys, for listening and listening to me talk about AI. I hope you found this enjoyable. I hope you found it informative, and I hope you'll come back and see what I'm doing next, because I love making these demo videos, these prototypes. I love showing what can be, getting feedback, and I think it goes so much further than just talking about something. But when you can actually show it, right? When you can speak on it, I think that when you actually have something, I think that goes much further. So I hope you found this valuable, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Bye.